Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Nathan Boyd, and joining us from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Christine Yarrow. Today marks the 75th anniversary of the Australian Signals Directorate, Australia's oldest intelligence agency, born out of the Second World War and charged with the mission to reveal their secrets and protect our own. On the 1st of April 1947, the Defence Signals Bureau was founded at Albert Park, Melbourne. The Bureau, which has now become the Australian Signals Directorate, was formed from the recruitment of personnel who had served with two wartime signals intelligence units, Central Bureau and Fleet Radio Unit Melbourne, Fromell. Central Bureau was responsible for providing intelligence to General Douglas MacArthur's Southwest Pacific Area Command, and Fromell supported the US Navy and its allies through the Pacific during the Second World War. The Australian Signals Directorate provided support to Australian forces engaged in Operation Claret during the Indonesian confrontation of 1964 to 1966, and deployed civilian liaison officers to Vietnam in support of the Army's 547 signal trip between 1966 and 1972. Since Vietnam, the Australian Signals Directorate has continued to support Australia's military operations globally, including to counter terrorism and protect Australia against other threats to Australian security. While the signals intelligence and cyber capabilities of the Australian Signals Directorate are necessarily secret, the Directorate continues to provide intelligence, cybersecurity, and offensive cyber operations in support of the Australian Government and the Australian Defence Force, and forms part of the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance with partner organisations in the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and New Zealand. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge Mr. Ben Staunton, Deputy Director General, Signals Intelligence and Networks Operations, and the accompanying delegation of senior executives and staff of the Australian Signals Directorate. We are also honoured to acknowledge Colonel Susan Newhouse, retired, member of the Council of the Australian War Memorial. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was a vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them on the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had done, what they had endured, and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance of the memorials galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who gave their lives for us on war in an operation for more than a century. But first, we present a lament. Flowers of the forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of a pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Alan Fairlie Kyle. Alan Kyle, commonly known as Bill, was born in Toowoomba, Queensland on the 7th of February 1898, the only son of Charles and Amelia Kyle. He attended Toowoomba Grammar School and was a member of the Senior Cadets. Kyle enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force at Sydney in February 1916 at the age of 18. Assigned to the 4th Divisional Signal Company as a sapper, he proceeded to France in early 1917. He was soon removed from the field, however, suffering from strain and shock as a result of active service. Returning to Australia, he was discharged as unfit for further duty in January 1918. The advent of hostilities with the Japanese during the Second World War found Kyle employed as the Assistant District Commissioner at Namatani on New Ireland, New Guinea, a post he had occupied for several years. Kyle reacted quickly to the arrival of a Japanese convoy off Rabaul. Having reported by radio the waves of bombers and sea invaders, Kyle and his friend, Patrol Officer Gregory Benham, moved down the east coast, collecting planters and missionaries along the way. As they arrived at Cape St. George at the southern end of the island, they obtained a boat for the growing party of refugees and requested instructions from Australia. Kyle was asked to stay behind to establish an observation post while the remainder of the group endeavoured to escape. Although ill, Benham insisted on staying with his friend Bill Kyle. Kyle was appointed lieutenant in the Royal Australian Naval Volunteer Reserve, while Benham became a sub-lieutenant. Both were allocated to the Special Intelligence Service. Both men had wives in Australia, Kyle having married Lillian Frith in Sydney in 1941, and arrangements were made for an allotment of pay to go to their wives. In their hideout overlooking St. George's Channel, Kyle and Benham started to produce a stream of intelligence in their role as coast watchers. With Rabaul in enemy hands, the coast watchers were in a prime position to report how the Japanese were now building up Rabaul with ships and planes from Truk in the Marshall Islands. 4 weeks later, they were joined by 10 refugee soldiers, and it soon became apparent that the group would run out of supplies. A parachute supply drop was organised, but when no response was heard for over 6 weeks, those in Australia feared the worst. When a reply did come, Kyle had a remarkable story to tell. A day or two before the supply drop, his hideout had been compromised, and he had been forced to take to the jungle under fire from Japanese troops. Reunited with Benham, the pair set off down the east coast, stopping at an old plantation house. Here they encountered an 80-strong mobile Japanese force, but managed to escape by the back door of the house as the first enemy troops entered through the front. That night, the enemy was within a few metres of their jungle hideout, but they made good their escape, setting up a new observation and transmitter post to the east. Once their new position was established, Kyle and Benham sent a trusted local soldier to their old post to check on the fate of the refugee soldiers and their radio. Not long afterwards, their numbers increased with the arrival of a group of civilians and a coast watcher from the north of the island. Kyle secured an old plantation boat to help their escape, but he and Benham refused to leave with the group, instead electing to stay and continue their coast-watching duties. News soon came in that the Japanese intended to set up a civil administration at Namatani, an event that would substantially increase the risk that locals would inform the Japanese about the actions of the coast watchers. A submarine was sent to rescue Kyle and Benham in late May, but nothing was heard from them via radio. Kyle's last written message gave details about the feeling of threat. "We may get chased out again any time and will probably lose the wireless. It is so dicky, I am afraid to move it again. I think it would be the end of it. It is hidden in the bush, but not too far away, and the natives may give it away. Don't worry about us. With extra food and medicine, we can last for some months, unless there is more patrol activity than there has been up to date. However, I hope you can eventually get us out, or we can counterattack, as they seem to murder anyone they find with teleradios. If any time you are dropping something, could you drop 2 coats and the appropriate rank rings? We have only trade shorts and shirts, and it might make a difference if we should get grabbed." The message prompted a second attempt to recover the pair. A submarine dropped off a fellow coast watcher in a canoe near their last known hideout on the east coast. It was ascertained that a Japanese post had recently been established almost on top of the hideout, but no information about their fate could be found. It was later learned that Kyle and Benham had been captured around 18 hours before they were to be picked up. The fact that the submarine had not been attacked at the rendezvous location was taken as evidence that they had kept silent, despite Japanese questioning. After being held captive for 4 months, Bill Kyle and Greg Benham were executed. A villager who witnessed their last moments reported that the men, blindfolded and with hands tied behind them, were taken by a Japanese barge from Kaving Wharf to Nago Island. The barge returned empty. Kyle and Benham were later presumed to have lost their lives on the 1st of September 1942. After the war, acting on reports received from locals, a group of Australians found the bodies of Alan Kyle, Greg Benham, and an elderly planter named Jack Talmadge buried together on Nago Island. The remains were collected and buried at Beta Pakar War Cemetery at Rabaul. Alan Kyle and Greg Benham were posthumously awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for their bravery. Alan Kyle's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left. among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Alan Fairlie Kyle, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They have no grave but the cruel sea. No flowers lay at their head. A resting hulk is their tombstone, a fast on the ocean bed. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.